Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast, and we are beginning our preseason coverage of all 32 NFL teams. Yesterday we did the Miami Dolphins. Day before we did the Buffalo Bills. We are sticking with the AFC East, and today we have the New England Patriots, which obviously they are coming off of a pretty disastrous season, winning just 4 games, and seem to have long odds to be able to compete in a very strong AFC East. I had both the Dolphins and the Bills as double-digit win teams. The Jets are probably going to be in that conversation as well. And the Patriots have very different expectations coming into this season, where it is a new era for the Patriots, where they have a brand new head coach and a brand new quarterback. They drafted Drake Maye out of North Carolina with the 3rd overall pick, and they promoted Gerard Mayo from defensive coordinator to head coach to succeed the legendary Bill Belichick. So the first time in 24 years that the Patriots have a new head coach. It's going to be really interesting. And we have a comment here from Shots Below the Belt. I know, they're my Patriots. No bias here. We're going to call it like it is. And it's going to be really interesting to see, because obviously even with the Mac Jones rebuild and what's been going on these past few years, it was still Belichick's team. And now we're just going clean slate here and seeing what is next in store for them. But before we even get to Drake Maye, we're probably going to be seeing Jacoby Brissett as the starting quarterback in week 1, which I think is the right decision. Jacoby Brissett is somebody who is, now at this point, you can kind of consider him an NFL journeyman. He started his career with the Patriots years ago. He started for a couple of years with the Colts, but since then, he has played for the Cleveland Browns and the Washington Commanders over the past few years. And I do think that there is a very real argument that Brissett has given his teams the best chance to win in these past couple years. Now, that's not saying that he has this elite play by any means. He is kind of the prototypical bridge quarterback, where he is just a professional. He can make the right plays. He's not going to put your team in harm's way necessarily. And that's also exactly what the Patriots need. I agree. From Shots Below the Belt, Brissett has been very much underrated. And again, he's not somebody who's this massive ceiling raiser necessarily for your franchise. But when you look at the Patriots from last year, their offense was a disaster. And the quarterback play overall from both Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi was consistently putting them in a very difficult situation. And we'll get into that with the defensive numbers a little bit. But I think that it is definitely a question for the Patriots of when is Drake Maye going to get his first start. As much as we're talking about this new era for the Patriots, it might be a little bit until we see Drake Maye. So taking a quick look here at the Patriots' upcoming schedule, I would say that there's a few factors in here that make it a situation where it's probably going to be a while until we see Drake Maye. The late bye week, typically that's a date that you can look at for when these rookies could potentially make their starts, but it's week 14 that the Patriots have their bye week, so there could definitely be a long wait in that sense. And I would also just about guarantee that the Patriots are going to hold off starting Drake Maye, if possible, until after Week 7. You can see on the screen here to our live viewers, Week 7 is against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that game's in London. I would imagine that the Patriots are probably going to take their time in the beginning of the year, not rush them into anything, and I don't think that they would want to sort of mix up Maye's debut with playing in London, and we see how those games can always be pretty weird in the NFL with the travel and everything there, even though the Patriots are one of the closer teams to London for whatever it's worth for travel purposes. But I feel like we see him come back after Drake Maye, that is, make his debut after week 7. Some games that I'm just going to throw out here quickly in terms of where he could end up getting his first start. I think that week 9 against the Tennessee Titans could potentially be a spot. Week 11 at home against the Rams. Week 13 against the Colts just before their bye week, so they can have some time to sort of recoup and go over at length what went well and what didn't go well for Drake Maye. And then I think that week 15 against the Cardinals are all options for them. None of them necessarily scream, this is the Drake Maye debut. Definitely let me know in the comment section where you think Maye is going to end up. But I also feel like Jacoby Brissett is going to give them solid quarterback play. And that is really all the Patriots can ask for after last year. They were an abomination of an offensive team. The stats on the screen here for our audio listeners, they were 30th in total offense, 28th in pass, 26th in rush, 31st in scoring, 30th in third down. Actually, we're all right in the red zone, 11th, but that was more so in regards to the fact that they didn't make it to the red zone all that often anyways. So I think that ultimately, Jacoby Brissett, if he can just provide stability, the Patriots would absolutely take that. And last year was a very rough watch, but it wasn't just the quarterbacks. We saw Ramondre Stevenson have a down year. I think he's due for a bounce-back season. He started to play better prior to his injury versus the Chargers late in the year last year. He was averaging 91 rush yards per game in his final 3 full starts of the season with 5.46 yards per attempt. In the previous 8 games, he was averaging just 38 yards per carry on 3.16 yards per attempt. So was looking to be a better version of himself, but ultimately hip drop tackle got him and he was out for the rest of the year. But the Patriots even still rewarded him with a contract extension this offseason. They have a new offensive coordinator in Alex Van Pelt, who, when he was with Cleveland, granted with a better rush attack in Nick Chubb and a very good offensive line, Alex Van Pelt did make a name for himself in large part because he had his teams dominating the ground game. So I think that Ramondre he had a really good 2022 season, and I think that he is going to be able to have some version of a bounce back, but that's not where your problems start with the Patriots' offensive issues. The offensive line is really the glaring red flag for them. Sharp Football Analysis has them with a grade of just 18 out of 100, which is the 3rd worst offensive line in the NFL. They were really bad last year, didn't do all that much to address the need this offseason. They signed Okafor from the Pittsburgh Steelers. They drafted Sadon Wallace in the 3rd round. So at least have some new players in the building for them, but nobody with a real established pedigree. And I think that the offensive line is the number one reason why Drake Maye is going to have some time before he makes his debut. We heard during the pre-draft process that his footwork is the number one concern with him, and he's going to be really sped up behind that offensive line that allowed pressure very quickly last season, and we saw Mac Jones seeing ghosts by the end of the year there. But their wide receivers are playable. I know it's not an elite group by any means, but you have some guys that you can at least trust to contribute somewhat. Kendrick Bourne, when he's been healthy, when he hasn't been in the Bill Belichick / Matt Patricia doghouse, has been a nice contributor for them the past couple years. Demario Douglas, also known as Pop Douglas, a 6th-round draft pick from last year out of Liberty, also looked really good when he was healthy for them. So they don't have a true number one wide receiver. I wouldn't say this receiver group is going to be a strength, but I don't think that it's going to be a total clown show. And again, if Brissett just makes the right plays, I think he's going to have options ahead of him. But if you have any optimism for this season for the Patriots, it is going to be instilled in the defense, which was really good last year, and that was with missing Matthew Judon and Christian Gonzalez, their two best defensive players for the majority of the season. And ultimately, we'll see what happens there. Judon's going through a little bit of a contract dispute right now with the Patriots, so we'll see how much he even ends up playing. Christian Gonzalez, still a rookie that he only got, I think it was 3 full games out of him. He just looked excellent when he was actually playing. And they had some bright spots of younger players that shined for them last season. Christian Barmore was extremely effective from a defensive lineman standpoint. Jabril Peppers had a nice standout season as well. So I think that their defense is just very reliable, and it has a chance to be a top 10 unit, in my opinion, assuming everything goes right for them. Their defense last year, you can see the worst area for them was in scoring, and I attribute that a lot to the offense putting them consistently in bad situations. The Patriots had 29 giveaways last year, which was top 6 in the NFL, and you see the red zone defense, 6th in red zone, but 15th in scoring. I think that in large part has to be because of the fact that the quarterbacks were so sloppy last year. If Brissett takes care of the ball, like we have some comments in the chat right now talking about, I feel like this team can definitely be in a good position. And the biggest question with their defense is, what's the drop-off going to be from Bill Belichick to Gerard Mayo in favor of, schematically defense? And Anthony's in the comments talking about the fact that he disagrees on my take about Bill Belichick being the greatest head coach of all time, which, we all have our opinions on that, but there's no doubt Belichick was a defensive mastermind, and that's where he made his money's worth in the NFL, even going back to when he was a defensive coordinator winning Super Bowls with the Giants. And, Mayo is not going to be on that level, especially from the jump, but he is somebody who's been with the coaching staff under Bill Belichick since 2019. He played for Belichick for 8 seasons in the mid-2010s as the leader of that defense, so he should have more than enough knowledge, I feel like, of understanding the game of football. It's going to be some of the other questions about whether or not he can handle the big-term picture with him, but to one of the comments in here as well, it is a scoring league, and ultimately, their defense can be really good. Like, again, I thought they were last season, but ultimately, if the offensive production isn't there, it's not going to be enough for the Patriots. So, taking one final look here at the Patriots schedule, we already talked about some where we think Drake Maye could make his first ever start. Anthony is talking about the idea that, Maye could make his debut around that Week 7 matchup. Again, I don't think that they roll him out there for the first time in London, but around that timeline is definitely possible if they're not good. They have some tough games early on in this one where they're playing the Bengals on the road, the Jets on the road, the 49ers on the road, hosting some tough opponents in the Dolphins and the Texans that ultimately, when you're talking about the Patriots this year, wins and losses really aren't the story to tell in large part. It's more so about whether or not there is a tangible thing to build off of in the years to come here. So, again, wins and losses are not really where the Patriots are playing for this season. A couple other notes here on the schedule. Only one national TV game for them. It is that Week 3 game against the Jets on the road on Thursday Night Football. So, ultimately here, schedule does not benefit them. For being a 4-win team last season, they have a top 10 most difficult schedule in the league, according to Strength of Schedule, which is just not very nice to my Patriots. But at the same time, again, it was never about making the playoffs this year. It's just about seeing what you have and evaluating what the future looks like. Ultimately, my prediction for them is going 5-12. Now, I do feel like, I've seen the odds. The line is 4.5 wins for them in terms of over-under on the year. I feel like that's pretty disrespectful. Now, I have them winning 5 games, so I don't significantly have them overachieving that, but in the comments section, Shots Below the Belt also was sort of throwing out the idea that this could be a Geno Smith-ish type of season for Jacoby Brissett, and I could definitely see that. Now, ultimately, difficult schedule ahead, a lot of unproven on the coaching staff. These are things to consider. The fact that the offensive line is still pretty disastrous, but I do kind of feel like I'm selling them short a little bit on the 5 wins. But again, if we want to quickly look at this schedule again, there aren't many games you can sort of chalk in a win already definitively when you're talking about this Patriots team and the difficult schedule that we have ahead. But let me know what you think I got right, what I got wrong. Again, 5-12 is what I have the Patriots finishing at this year. Probably at the bottom of the AFC East, but we're going to be continuing on with our previews tomorrow with the New York Jets. But gonna be taking our next break here. When we come back on the other side, last night was the MLB All-Star Game. I want to share my thoughts on the overall process there, and my guy Jarren Duran winning the MVP award for the game. So we are going to be diving into that. But first, a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.